Once upon a time, there was a show called Awesome Authors, and this is the show. Welcome aboard, people from Salem and Kaiser. I'm Lee Coyne, your host, and we have with us Robert Byland, by the way. And you originally were born on the opposite coast in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
And why did you land from Orlando to come here, and what happened in between?
My dad was doing temporary work in Florida. Then he had job opportunities that took him up to British Columbia. And after that ended, we moved down into Bellingham, and then Mom and Dad split when I was just 6.
Yeah.
And Mom took me back to Florida.
Let me ask you, I've visited British Columbia, but I've never lived there. Are the Canadians much different in their temperament and their social attitudes than us Yankees are? What's your thought on that?
You know, I haven't been in Canada much since about 1990.
That's a while back, yeah.
That's a while back. Yeah, they're pretty laid back though. I don't know too many Canadians that were less than cool though.
Cool. Okay. It's cooler up there anyway.
It is cooler up there a little bit.
Do they have as much fog in British Columbia as they have in, let's say, the Seattle area? Because
Well,
I know in the winter it gets very foggy some days.
I left BC when I was 4 years old, so
Not much of a stay then.
not much.
And then Bellingham came after that?
And then Bellingham after that until I was 6, and then Mom took me back to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I stayed there until 18, and then I moved back to the Bellingham area when I was 18.
And what brought you to Hillsborough, where you are now?
After driving truck, I had a back injury, and I went to school for electronics and got a degree in electronics, and got hired on by...
Is that why you're a live wire today?
That's why I'm a live wire today. So I got hired by Intel here, so I moved from Bellingham to Hillsborough to work for Intel, and that was in 2004.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Now, I want to trace back to your interest in writing. When you were, let's say, in middle school or high school?
I was in high
writer
school. I did some competition writing. It was just essays that went into in state competition.
That's helpful, yeah.
So I did get first place in argumentative writing I think that was my junior year.
So that was your launch pad. So
That was my launch pad for writing, yeah.
What did you write about in those days?
I wrote one imaginative writing was actually featured in a skateboard magazine of all things. But the one that went into state competition was an argumentative writing about abortion, just the subject of abortion.
Hot topic.
Yeah, hot topic at the time.
Still is today.
Still is today, yeah, of course.
Okay. And then did you get any college in after high school, or not really?
I didn't go to college until almost 30 years old when I did my retraining for electronics.
And in electronics, did you have to write sort of program plans and stuff like that?
That wasn't much writing going on. That was a lot of just technical learning.
Okay.
But I had to do technical writing and stuff when I worked at Intel. We had to track a lot of product movement and tool usage.
Yeah. So Robert, tell us a little bit about, this is right now you're midstream in writing the book. It hasn't been published yet.
Correct.
Why did you choose this theme?
It chose me.
Okay, tell us more.
So, this story is about a man that discovers autism in his adulthood. After a life of social anxieties, just a hard time fitting in anywhere, not understanding social order and things like that. But it's just a spiraling life of alcohol and addiction, and then later on to find out that I'm autistic, or this character is autistic.
On top of that.
On top of it, well, that kind of clears up a lot of answers, and he puts his life back together from the ground up. But this story is about a guy. He turns to biking because he's lost his license due to the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and he reignites his love for bicycling, and he goes all crazy on it and starts designing electric bikes and building electric bikes. And then all of a sudden he discovers the autism, and it just puts everything into perspective in his life. And
why don't we take a minute, because not everybody in our viewing audience out there knows what autism is. So can you describe it in a few sentences so we're all enlightened?
Autism spectrum disorder is it comes with language barriers. It comes with social anxiety disorders, just an inability to fit in and to relate. Eye contact is difficult for people that are autistic. There's executive dysfunction or executive function issues of just.
Tell us what executive function is, because that's not everybody's everyday vocabulary.
Executive function is just your ability to do things in order.
Choose priorities.
To be able to choose priorities or to follow through with a process with set steps. I have a hard time keeping track of that kind of stuff. It makes everyday living difficult. And it makes friendships are difficult, because it's sometimes I'm not easy to understand my point of view, and I don't always understand your point of view or their point of view. And
so it's communication and
so these communication errors really haunt a lifetime of social fit in. I've never been able to fit in right, and when I do fit in, I fit in with people that are pretty much like me. And it's really common that a lot of autistic people just kind of meet up together and end up being friends, and because your interests are often the same. When you get enthusiastic about something like bicycling.
So tell us a little bit about the public stereotype of what autism is, because I'm sure there are a lot of myths and rumors out there that aren't quite accurate.
Oh, goodness.
So let's expose the phony myths out there.
Well, some of the myths are that we don't have empathy and we don't feel emotion, and that's certainly that couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm ruled by my emotions, and I have a hard time. That's one of the key characteristics of traits of autism is the inability to process the emotions correctly. So the emotions are there. We just don't always have a handle on them correctly. At least that's my experience with it. And that's one of the other things about autism is it's a spectrum disorder, and that means that people's symptoms or traits are very different across the spectrum.
No, ain't no one size fits all.
There's no one size fits all. I mean, if you look at the most popular one that we know of on TV would be Sheldon Cooper on Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah.
He's not written as an autistic character, but that certainly is there's your stereotypical autistic one, that at least one of what they would call, and I hate to use this term, high functioning, but the way they paint him, it would almost seem that way, but there's a lot more pain and I don't know, they don't give his anxieties enough reality.
Are there such things as autism support groups or
there are,
or social action type things?
Those are easier for children to find. For adults, that's a lot harder to find. There is an autistic adult meetup group in Portland once a month. And that's just for a couple of hours at a cafe in downtown Portland. Other than that, I've not found any support.
Why don't we use this opportunity, speak to the cameras and say, hey, Salem Hospital, that's the big employer on medical issues here. They have something called CHEC, C-H-E-C, Community Health Education Center, I think it is, but whatever you're called. See if you can set up an autism support group. I'm sure if you advertise it, you'll get quite a few recruits in it. And it's time. A new decade, not a new century, but a new decade Let's go for it, man.
This is the decade for autism, and that's the key difference here that enabled this was my access to Google and my access to support groups. That's where my support has come from. That's where all my information has come from, is just exhaustive research.
Okay.
So that's why this book is still in writing. I've only discovered my autism a year ago, but it's changed my life in such a massive direction that it's demanded a book out of it. There's a direction for the story that's just going to be amazing. I can't wait to share it with people.
Okay, tell us a little bit about how you evolved the story, and give us, without spilling all your trade secrets, about the main character and where you hope to go with this book.
Well, where I hope to go is just to paint the story of what I have found is a very typical story of growing up not knowing about this part of you that makes everything difficult, but it doesn't make you disabled. It just makes everything difficult. And so I'm going to paint the story of a person that goes through that kind of childhood, adulthood, the job bounces, and then the tendencies for addiction and alcoholism, and then what happens when you find the answers, and how those answers will start plugging in all those questions from childhood and that have haunted your life. This is a very typical story that comes out, and I just want to relate that in the story of one person, and that the art that was, when I discovered my autism, I've discovered more about myself in the last year than I have in the last 20 years. So I want to be able to try to share that and show that potential. And yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun.
It makes you connect the dots more coherently.
It will be more coherent in the book. Autistic people, when it comes to speaking live, this is one of our hardest things to do. Most of us will shut down. I'm lucky.
Next up, Hollywood. Watch out.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, there's plenty of people in Hollywood that are autistic. Yeah, but it comes with practice. They get a lot of
You want to name
exposure.
names of?
Sure. Am I going to blank on names now?
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Okay.
Just down the road a little bit.
Oh, goodness.
Actors, TV,
Actors.
radio.
A recent one, 70 years old, Silence of the Lambs. Help me out here. What's his name? Anthony Hopkins. There we go.
Okay. So look up on your Wikipedia, Anthony Hopkins, and see if it is listed autism or whether they conveniently skipped over it. Now you know.
No, that's definitely a public one.
In terms of Hollywood PR. Wow.
There's a whole list of them. I just put on the spot here. I draw blanks, and that's the communication issues that I fight with.
So that people can get familiar with who's who and what's what and all.
So we make better writers than we do talkers often. That was my point with the autism there.
What's the biggest challenge of writing for you?
Sitting still long enough. ADHD is another one of my fine attributes.
Okay, that's it.
So that's one of those spectrum differences. That makes me more of the bouncy around, hyperactive type. And that.
Well, you ride a motorbike that's bouncing around.
It's bicycle. This is pedal power only.
Literally, man.
Yeah.
And, how'd you get involved in bicycle riding and all that? And what attracted you to it? Was it the speed?
The freedom.
Freedom. Okay.
Yeah, not so much the speed.
Okay.
I don't go fast. I ride for style, and I kind of I've developed a method of riding a bike that just I take advantage and enjoy every inch of the ride.
Terrific. And are there any special highways or byways you would recommend for bike riding from your experience?
Parking lots. Any newly paved parking lot is my favorite.
Okay, good.
With a little bit of slope to it, with some nice parking stones and some handicap parking. Not the parking, but the sidewalk ramps are perfect spots to do a lot of the
Anybody out
stunts.
there who wants to? By the way, do you have an email or a website at this point?
My Facebook page and my Instagram page are both my name, Robert Byland.
Spell it out. They don't know.
That'd be Robert.Byland, ROBERT.BYLAND. That's the Instagram account. Robert Byland is my name. That's my Facebook page.
Okay, Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Okay, check it out. If you're into writing and or motorbike riding, get in touch with Robert. He'd love to hear from you.
Electric motorbike riding.
Mm-hmm. And you could form your own little posse, so to speak.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Do bikers have a special holiday that's sacred to them that they want to go and do their thing?
Oh, there's one in Portland here. There's a big bicycle ride in Portland once a year. It's during
I'm
the
not
summertime.
talking about the one where they ride nude. And,
That's the one.
is that the one? And they show off their military secrets, so to speak.
There you go. Yeah, they dress for the. They undress for the weather.
Right.
We'll just say that.
Yes.
I don't take. I've never done that before. Just to set the record straight
I'm gonna
here.
spook Ross. Ross has the expression "dress for less," but this is "undress for less."
There you go.
Okay.
Just dress less. Period.
I hope we're not cut off the air for saying that and corrupting people's minds. We'll take that risk.
I think we're okay.
Okay, good. So tell us. Now you developed a character in the book. How do you describe the character? How would you portray it to the readership to be out there?
The book will briefly cover childhood, young adulthood with the job bounces and stuff. Okay. That'd be all first chapter.
Okay, so let's do chronologically. What the main character, who's a reflection of you?
That main character is a reflection of me, and it's not going to. I'm not going to write a story about my life. It'll be far from that. So I'm only using my experience of the discovery of autism as the central feature, and my bicycling. And I'm a musician too. Played electric bass. The last time I came to Salem, I played here at the solar eclipse.
Wow.
And I was bass man on the van. So I was up on top of my van with my bass, and I had all my amplification equipment out. And that's what I was doing. I would tour around and play the bass with music. So this character takes his music and combines it with his bicycle riding in a very creative manner. And so I don't want to give away that part of it.
Okay. What kind of music do you play? Rock music, maybe?
Mostly rock music, but I can play any
acoustic.
Electric bass. I've played the stand-up bass. So I played bluegrass and gospel and anything up through jazz and R&B and gospel. Yeah.
We had a gospel singer here about 2 years ago, and she wound up getting a job as an actress at the Elsinore.
Oh wow!
And that's a lady from Portland, named Marilyn T. Keller.
Fabulous. Yeah.
So let's go to adolescence, which is a turning point for most of us, where we tend to mold and refine or define our personality. What does autism mean to an adolescent?
Awkward. Awkward. I was very hyperactive. I was always class clown. I was always acted up. I was always on detention. Always in trouble with the teacher. I was raised in a racially tensioned neighborhood. I was a white boy in a black neighborhood, and that was a challenge of its own. Was just
I believe that, yeah.
Sticking out. So that made it difficult for me to figure out that my social issues weren't always just racially motivated. They were.
And we're on the cusp of Martin Luther King's birthday as we videotape this program today. Do you have any advice for society out there? Part of society is listening, presumably. What should we do to ease up racial tensions here in this day and age in 2020? Where do we go from here to keep Dr. King's dream alive and build upon it?
We're not different. That's just it. We have the same end all here. We are one people on this planet, and I think that while I I do value my culture, and people do should value their cultures.
Yeah.
Valuing humanity, I believe, is more important. It should be above all of that.
Good.
And I think that message needs to be pushed more. So, but I try to not have massive political standings.
I had
other
the
than that.
unusual experience, if I just may chime in, to have gotten my first job out of college as the first white reporter in a black newspaper. So I had a little of that immersion myself back in the 1960s, and I once had the opportunity to cover Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, August of 1963, and I met Malcolm X for 3 minutes of my life. Very shy in person, very much different in the crowd.
What an honor.
Yeah. He and Louis Armstrong only lived 2 blocks away from each other, but most of the public doesn't know that.
No.
East Elmhurst, Queens. And of course, they're worlds apart, philosophically.
Of course they are, yeah.
Okay. Be that as it may, do you have any suggestions for people who find themselves autistic? Where do they go from here? What path should they pursue, Robert?
The biggest helps that I've had, and I'm not saying this is the right way to do it.
But it's one way.
But the one way to do it is immediately, I would say, find a Facebook group that is autism related. Autistic adults, just search autistic adults in your Facebook groups and find a comfortable group. Find 2 or 3 and just start reading the posts from other people, and you'll start seeing that you're not alone, and that there's thousands of people out there like me. And I thought I was, alone in this world. I just didn't fit in anywhere real well.
Yeah. And that's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable,
and it makes you feel alienated, really.
It is. And suicide is the leading cause of death among autistic adults.
Wow.
So, and that's just, fitting in and having a social
network, really.
Having social pressure your entire life like that's hard to deal with.
It is.
I figured out ways around it. Like I say, I get out on the bike and
So autistic people get teased, bullied, and all that.
There's a lot of bullying, and I was bullied in school too. So
I could appreciate that.
I definitely did not fit in. And
how'd you meet your wife, Lori? Once upon a time, another one. She's observing here, so you better come clean.
I stole her.
Yes.
My wife. Let's see. She was dating my roommate. And they were only on their first couple of dates when I moved in with this character, with my roommate there, and they only had like 1 or 2 more dates after that, but we remained friends. They stayed friends, and we all hung out together for another year after that, and it was a good year after that before we went on our first date together.
So what did you use for bait to hook her?
Acceptance. Yeah, I'd have to say acceptance.
That's a very strong, powerful motivation.
Yeah, we spoke the same language. She got me, I got her, and it was pretty quick. It was.
Does she find a place in your book, or that's peripheral?
No, I don't think not directly is at that. No, this isn't, like I said, the story's not going to be about me. It's going to be a skeleton on the autistic experience, but there's far more to the story than that.
Okay.
So.
And is author your main job right now? It
is. You're
not doing truck driving anymore.
No, I'm certainly not doing that. Back injury got me out of that. I've had an autistic burnout, and what that means to me, the inability to process work anymore.
Yeah.
I worked setting up labs and doing electronic testing and soldering on product development. I finally snapped. It looked like a work breakdown, but it's autism masking for a lifetime and not knowing that it was there. And it wasn't until 2 years after my last day of work that I discovered that I was autistic. Yeah. And it was through my struggling and my mental health breakdowns that were happening, were unaddressed depression and the PTSD resulting from undiagnosed autism for a lifetime.
PTSD is another.
PTSD is highly common
we
with
want to
adults.
take up on this program in the future. By the way, Robert and I met online through Facebook essentially, and anyone out there want to recommend a future guest, I'm open to all suggestions. We've done about 610 shows since we began in May of 2014, over 5 years ago, and still going strong. And I'm privileged to have people of the caliber of Robert on our show. You make a,
I appreciate you having me on here.
what they say in the street, you make a damn good guest, man. That's my Brooklynese at
Wow.
work, you know. And
You're a darn good host.
thank you. Anything you want to say about your first time being a guest? I didn't interrogate you to make you sweat too much?
No, I didn't fall apart. I think I've managed to hold it together well enough. You didn't tear me to too many small pieces.
Are there any
appreciate
questions
you
I
having
didn't
me
ask?
on here.
Is there any questions I haven't asked you that you'd like to ask yourself?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't
It's an
put.
open-ended.
I would never put myself on the spot like that.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
yeah.
You all might want to look up and see what autism is listed in Wikipedia and see if they have a correct definition, and if you want to add anything to it, and if there are any groups in town. This town is Salem Hospital is the big medical thing, and the Salem Health. They could set up such a group if one doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You can't call it AA, Autism Anonymous, because you already have Alcohol Anonymous, so I don't know what you call it.
That'll be a whole nother book.
Yeah.
I would like to write a book on addiction and alcoholism among with autistic people, with how that relates to autism, because there's a heavy connection there. Alcohol is an easy way to handle social interaction. It kind of takes the pressure off.
Okay.
So it's a natural way to help alleviate that social pressure and anxiety.
Terrific. Okay. Well, we're past New Year's, which is a big drinking season for some people, but we have Valentine's, so we don't want you to go haywire with too much overload of drugs, legal or otherwise, or alcohol, which is a drug in itself. So we want to wish you all in the days ahead. February, the weather may be cold and chilly and damp. We want to lighten up your spirits. Robert and I have endeavored to accomplish that, right?
Indeed.
And we're glad that we have support of positive success stories like your own to put out there. And so we're glad that you're an author in the making, and publisher comes down the line, and we hope by Independence Day you feel independent enough to publish, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Carry on.
All right.
Okay. Bye. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.